Welcome to ISKCON of Silicon Valley. Very happy to be here with all of you today, both in the live studio audience and online from various places around the world. Please make yourselves comfortable. We have asanas that were geometrically arranged until they were unceremoniously disrupted. This organization was founded in 1965 by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A friend had suggested that he should call it the International Society for God Consciousness. However, the founder preferred to call it International Society for Krishna Consciousness, as people generally are unacquainted with the features of God and the names of God. And one of the specific missions that he had was to give the details not only of spiritual practice, but also of the goal of spiritual practice, which was come to know our original divine conscious source, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, this is a non-sectarian process. It's opened to everyone from all cultures, and it deals with the eternal process called Sanatana Dharma. Of course, it's redundant today. It's an eternal process, Sanatana Dharma, because Sanatan means eternal, and Dharma means the constitutional nature of the soul. Just as various elements that we're acquainted with, like water, have a particular constitution. Or sugar has sweetness. Water's nature is to be liquid. At various times, the liquidity of water is interrupted through the process of freezing, as an example. And in a similar way, the soul has eternal nature too, which is to love and serve God. But sometimes that gets interrupted through distraction and then being engrossed in lower energies. All the energies come from God, but some are lower. So today, we'll talk about some practical points for the practice of Bhakti Yoga, also known as devotional service, that anyone can take up, no matter what position in life one's in, what age one's in, and one will feel tangible results from these practices. The first practice is called Kirtan. Everyone say Kirtan. Which means to broadcast, to sing, advertise, to make someone famous, actually. Kirti means fame. And Samkirtan, everyone say Samkirtan, means to sing together. And the subject matter of the singing is important because in the names of Krishna, there are spiritual potencies, powers. And this was a doctrine promoted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, but who came as a devotee in order to teach the eternal process of devotional service. And in his teachings, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that the names of God have the same powers as God. They're non-different from him. Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. Nija Sarva Shaktis means all the personal characteristics and energies of God are present, inherent in his name. And therefore, just by chanting those names and remembering those names, one comes directly in contact with Krishna. His names are very beautiful, and they refer to his qualities and his relationships in the spiritual world. And the name Krishna means the most beautiful and attractive. Of course, everyone's looking for beauty, and there is a source for all beauty, and it's unparalleled and never diminished. So when we sing the name of Krishna, we're actually coming in contact with Krishna, and we can experience his beauty through hearing his name. This is one of the teachings of the Vedas. Oh, would you like a seat? If you can take chairs, or you can sit wherever. Those chairs are not reserved, so if you need them, you can have them. Welcome. Thanks for coming, Chuck. We just started a few minutes ago, and I'm talking about the first practice of bhakti yoga, devotional service, or chanting. I say first because it's a primary process that was introduced by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu over 500 years ago as a universal means through which anyone can come in contact with transcendence. And he had showed how the names of the Supreme are non-different from the Supreme himself. And therefore, when one sings those names, one can have direct contact with the Supreme. Of course, it's not that one could sing any syllables and get the same result. For instance, if you're thirsty and you repeat the word water, it's not that your thirst will be quenched. However, if you chant Krishna, then you'll feel the presence of Krishna and have direct communion, and you'll feel the presence for yourself. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended, wherever he went, that people get together wherever they can, in their homes or at their workplaces, and they sit together and clap hands and sing these divine names. The other day, I was on a phone call. In fact, it might have been yesterday. And it was a Zoom meeting, the facilitator of the call asked everyone present, they were all practitioners of bhakti yoga, when was the first time he or she had heard the chanting of the Mahamantra, which contains these divine names, and what he or she experienced from that, the first time hearing the mantra. And those who were present talked about ways in which they had been moved by hearing the vibration itself, and had, at the very least, experienced that there was something uncommon. They had sensed there was something uncommon and deep about the chanting. And this is parallel with the teachings of the disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One of them, named Rupa Goswami, said that when someone who's unaware of the potency of the chanting hears it, even for the first time, even incidentally, that person can awaken to a higher level of consciousness in which he or she senses a devotion in his or her heart, devotion for the Supreme. So it has that a natural effect, the chanting does. And in a series of benefit-based statements in the prayers that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu composed, talking about this chanting of the mantra and the divine names of God, he gave a long list of the benefits of chanting. You want to hear some of them? Okay. So one of them is that it cleanses the heart. And the way he put it in Sanskrit is Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So marjana means to clean something, and darpana means a mirror. And it's a metaphor because he calls the heart the mirror, sort of the mirror of the mind. There's a lot of explication of this principle in the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali Muni. And he wrote about, did Patanjali, the psychology of yoga, and how the mind works. So the mind is called the Chitta, and it's the most subtle part of our material body. We have a gross and subtle material body, kind of like hardware and software. Then there's the operator who runs it. So you gotta have that, otherwise it doesn't work. And the subtle element of our body is called the mind, but he divides it into three. There's the mind, the intellect, and the false ego. So these are all subtle elements. And altogether they're called the Chitta. Now the Chitta is very sophisticated apparatus and is absorbent. Whenever I move about the world, or even if I don't move about too much, I'm absorbing information from the environment. For instance, through the eyes, I take in the various sights, reflected light, the imagery of the world. I hear sounds, they go in through the ears, and then I can smell, and I can feel things, tactile sense. And then these are knowledge-gathering senses. So Patanjali Muni pointed out that whatever I come in contact with in this world goes in and is recorded, and it stays within the Chitta. So that information is recorded and stored, and it's, for the most part, latent, and it again activates in various circumstances. For instance, when we dream, we're cycling through many of the recorded images that are already there within the Chitta. And we also might notice that we have predisposition. We have a predisposition to act in certain ways. Of course, any parent will know that. They'll see their children have various natures. And people in general are predisposed to certain kinds of behavior. According to Patanjali Muni, this is all coming from our conditioning, or what I'm speaking about is the stored information we already have, the combinations and permutations of that form impressions and make up, they are the aggregate, it's that aggregate that makes up our personality. And it's also the way we see the world. As Epictetus said, or Epictetus remarked, that we don't see the world the way it is, we see the world the way we are. Various people look at situations in the world and they see them differently because they're seeing through the lens of their Chitta. So the Chitta actually impels us to act in certain ways. When we make decisions, we wait for an answer and an impulse to push us go this way or that way. And this, Patanjali Muni says, is karma. Karma means how I'm being pushed now or impelled to act in a certain way based on the impressions I've acquired from previous experiences. And now I move in a certain way. I may think that I'm making independent choices, but it's based on the information in my Chitta. All this amounts to a kind of conditioning that predisposes us to various kinds of habits that keep me entangled in a material cycle. Have you ever felt entangled in a habit pattern? Any time that you couldn't get out of? Okay, 1, 2, 3, a couple over here. Thank you. Makes me feel better. And Patanjali Muni says this is inevitable. And that there needs to be some intervention in order to break out of that. Although somebody may break out of it temporarily, This also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is a discussion about the ways in which one may temporarily overcome some conditioning, but then one goes back to it again later at another time. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Good to see you. So, what to do? How to get that intervention? There's advice by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that this chanting of the divine names of God has such force. It's a purifying experience, a deep cleaning. As he says, in the first benefit one gets from chanting, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, which means that Chitta, those impressions that I've collected over many, many lifetimes, they become purified. Or, if you're from Silicon Valley and you're an engineer, they're overwritten. And the previous ones begin to disintegrate, and you overwrite with superior impressions, spiritual impressions. From the chanting itself, it's in the mantra. It's antiviral software that you can run, get things fixed right back up again. So that's the first claim that he makes in his benefits-based list of what you get from this process of bhakti yoga. The primary focus of bhakti yoga is the chanting. And the claim is that it's different from other kinds of sound vibration. There's a lot of explanation philosophically of how that works. I've only touched on it a little bit. The next claim is that Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Maha Davagni Nirapanam. This is rather poetical, but it's something we could probably relate to. And that in this list, he mentions a forest fire. We have a lot of experience lately because of the dryness of our state. There's lots of fires here. And when they start burning, it's really hard to put them out. Piecemeal, it's hard. You can take fire crews. And they try to the best of their ability. Right, Kanka? She lives in a fire area. Her husband helps put them out. Right? Yeah. So what do people who are fighting fires pray for? Well, the simple answer is a rainstorm. Because then they get a day off. And really that's the only thing that ultimately puts it out. And I remember there were lingering effects from some of the forest fires, and then we got some rain here. And the first reports came in, it's like, okay, for months it was fires 20% contained. Now it's 42% contained. 60% after a long time. And then the rain came and said, 100% it's contained. So what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, again, he's the teacher who brought this system of bhakti yoga to the world in a practical way. That's 100% containment of the forest fire. So what's the forest fire? It's the way that I am oppressed by the world, to put in simple terms. There's a kind of burning sensation, starting with the fact that don't get alarmed, I don't have a fever, but I am at 98.6 or somewhere around there, and that's pretty hot. And once I burn out this body, then I start another one at 98.6. A great teacher of bhakti yoga pointed out that this was similar to chain smoking. There's a phenomenon where people smoke a cigarette, and then when it gets all the way down, they pull out the next one, and they start the new cigarette from the old one, and then throw out the old one, start the new one. They never stop. So this is, in Sanskrit, called Samsara. It means that I flow from one situation to the next. In this case, from one material body to the next. And in the context of the teachings on yoga, having a gross material and subtle material body are not ideal, because we're inherently spiritual and at odds with the material nature of which this material body is made. And there's a kind of burning sensation that we get if we talk about emotion. There's an emotion we have here of loss, because whatever we have now that we're attached to, and I know this is a family program, so I don't want to get too macabre, but everything eventually is wrested from our control. All those things dear to us, people dear to us, even the best laid plans somehow are taken off course by the very nature of this world. And it's downright, it's a bummer. Yes or yes? Okay. Of course, we can be cheery about life at the same time, I suppose. But as far as our existential situation goes, it's dire. And it's compared to being in a burning house or to being in the middle of a forest fire. And someone might say, as the house is burning down, it's like, yeah, but just let me finish this one television program. It's almost to the end. I haven't seen the conclusion. It's not ideal to hang around in this environment. However, there's no place really to go, because, as has been said many times by great thinkers, wherever you go, there you are. You can't really escape your conditioning or your nature. So what has to happen is some existential change in one's consciousness. And that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, takes place just by the chanting. That means that burning sensation, that feeling of obligation to have to work hard and then die in the material world is extinguished. And one comes to one's eternal position. So this is the essence of this statement. The bhava davagni nirvapanam means the forest fire goes out. Now you're back to your normal state. I hope I expressed that somewhat in a way that is appealing. Pardon? Okay. Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam shreya kairava. So this is also poetic. The whole thing's poetical. Shreya kairava means there's, believe it or not, a white lotus of good fortune. When it opens, then everything's good in your life. Would you like that? Yes. People, when I was a kid, I first got introduced to the idea of good luck. I asked, why the kid next to me in 4th grade, why do you have a rabbit's foot hanging off your backpack? He said, it's good luck. I didn't know that. Wasn't great for the rabbit, right, exactly. So there's a sense in which everyone's trying to ward off trouble in the world and invite good fortune. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wake up in the morning and pray that the IRS will call and ask for your records. That's not funny. Okay. We want good fortune. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu claims, if you want good fortune, it comes from the spiritual platform. And you'll get it, he says, that white lotus of good fortune will open in your life by chanting. So that sounds nice, doesn't it? Better than a rabbit's foot. Shreya kairava chandrikavitavanam. Vidyavadu jivanam means that when you chant, you'll also get clear knowledge. And knowledge is defined in the Bhagavad Gita as the discriminatory power to see the difference between yourself and your body. We're not your body. I'm not your body either. But we're spiritual beings temporarily residing in a material body. And we come to see that very clearly through the chanting process. It's a concomitant benefit of chanting that we get this kind of clear knowledge. Vidyavadu jivanam. Anandam buddhivardhanam means that you'll be very happy. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 means absolutely, completely blissful and happy. And 1 means unhappy and morose, where do you think that if you averaged it out in a normal day in your life, where the needle would land in a 24-hour cycle? The average mean, where would it be? 3? Thank you. Now you really make me feel better. Okay, I got a 3. Anybody else? 6. Okay, 6, 7, 8, 5. Okay, why not 10? So Anandam Buddhivardhanam means it's a 10 for sure. Maybe it goes off, off into the higher numbers past 10, if there are any. Anandam Buddhivardhanam. And he compares it again. He says it's like an ocean of happiness. So that sounds okay. Right? Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipanam Purnamrita Svavanam. That all of these benefits come by the chanting process. And it means that we're coming in contact with a different energy that resonates with our higher self, with our soul. And we can live in that through the sound vibration. And he makes a conclusive statement, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtan, means you win. You'll win the battle. And the way to win the battle of life and to come to the point of reaching your highest potential in life is through this connection with the chanting. So 2 ways to chant. One way is in this Kirtan as a group. That's why we picked this hall when we came and found this building. We said, this is a suitable place where we could sit together, at least a few of us, like are here today, and we could test it out. The acoustics aren't bad. And then the other type of chanting is individual. You can take some time to sit or pace and repeat the mantra out loud. Just this morning I took a long walk in the early part of the day, nice cool weather, and I just carried a little counter with me, and I was walking and just chanting, and I felt happy by chanting as I could hear the mantra, and my mind would keep coming back to the mantra because it tends to run off to different places. And this is the kind of meditation that you can do at home. And of course you can do this at home also. And you'll experience what every other Hare Krishna group has ever experienced in their life, is that is somebody calls the cops at some point. These guys are too loud. They're always chanting. And you can chant to as a meditation for yourself, a personal repetition of the mantra. And you'll start developing a sense of peace, happiness, a relationship with the chanting, and you can integrate it into your daily practices, if you have any. If you don't, start with this. And all of the practices will be accommodated by this chanting. This is the advice given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers. So it's only one major part of this practice, and it's the chanting. And then there's a lot to study about the different energies. Those are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. In essence, there's higher energies and lower energies. If you hang around with lower energies, you're going to feel low. If you hang around with higher energies, you're going to feel high. And the highest energy of all is from the spiritual world. It's beyond the various levels in this world. It's imported. It's outside the closed system of the universe. And it comes down as a special gift to us. This is the idea. Are you buying all this? Okay. So we can try it out if we dare. This is kind of like a launching pad. And we could take off to higher realms just sitting here. I always wanted to try that. When I was a kid, my parents took me to a movie where there were flying carpets. It was before Disney and all that. It was a black and white movie. And I used to sit on my carpet at home and think, how do I get this thing to go? And then I figured it out. It's through the mantra. So we have the mantra, so if we take off, the whole we go all together, then don't be surprised. I'll say a few introductory mantras. This is just advanced course in chanting mantra, but when we thank those who have passed the mantra down to us first, before we start to repeat it in our meditation at home or as a group, then by our gratitude, the mantra becomes more accessible to us. So the first person that we're thanking, and I'll be saying this Sanskrit mantra, which is naming the person who very specifically brought the chanting to the West. And that's what this mantra says. It's thanking the person who brought it, whose picture there is on the left. His name is Prabhupada. And then after that, I'll chant a mantra about the person I mentioned earlier, Chaitanya, who brought the mantra 500 years ago. It was already here, but he just made it practical and took it to every town and village in South India and advised his followers to spread it further around the world. So we're in the process now of still following that system of offering the mantra. We were just in San Francisco on Friday, as a matter of fact. It wasn't any ordinary Friday, it was Black Friday. And we set up several areas where we could chant outside to offer the sound vibration to the shoppers, and they really appreciated it. People liked to dance to it, and we could see that it was invigorating to the multitude, which was down by about 80%, I guess, from normal crowd size. So here I go with the first mantra, and then you'll recognize probably the Hare Krishnaman mantra, which is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you can chant along with this, or you can wait for the Maha Mantra. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshataya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. So he threw in an extra mantra at the end. because it goes Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. So these are also spiritual mantras. Nitai and Gaur together are a mantra. And they're names of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his first expansion. God expands himself into multiple forms, although he's one. And Hari Bol is a phrase. Hari refers to the Supreme Person. Actually, it has a nice meaning. It means one who takes away all your misery. Hari means one who, sometimes it means Hari, one who steals. So if you don't want to give it up, your attachment to the material world, if you chant Hare Krishna, then Krishna will take it away for you, if you're brave enough. You just leave the door unlocked. He can climb over the wall anyway, but by chanting Hare Krishna. So, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Bol means chant. Everyone say bol. Bol. Now say Hari Bol. Now say Hari Hari Bol. Hari Bol. If you ever see someone you think might be a Hare Krishna, just go Hari Bol. And they'll let you stay overnight. First time I went as a very young monk, I had to go through Hong Kong. I mean, I didn't have to, but I did. And I had to stay overnight there. And of course, I took the cheapest flight on the planet. We got in at about 1 a.m. And try finding your way around Kowloon and getting the right address. Cab didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know what he was saying, the cab driver. And finally, at like 2 a.m, I found the apartment complex. There were several numbers, buttons you could push. So I pushed the one I thought was the right one. That's what it said on the card. And nothing. Pushed it again. I had nowhere to go. Cab waiting outside. Stuck in the middle of Hong Kong. Pushed it a few more times. Finally, I heard a voice. Something in Cantonese. And I said, Hari Bol. I didn't even see who answered. Everyone was sleeping. They went back to bed. I went in, put my sleeping bag on the floor, and woke up in the ashram. I said, okay, that's how you do it. The world runs by mantra. And it still does. Everything gets built by sound. When you want to build a building, you have to think of it, and then you mention it, and then it gets built. There's a few steps in between there, but that's the essence of it. The ingredients are already there, but you assemble them through the sound vibration. The whole material universe is assembled by sound vibration. And the Vedas say anavriti shabdat. Anavriti shabdat means that by sound we can become uncovered. We can uncover our real nature, our eternal nature, that's fully blissful and disconnected from matter. In fact, we're never actually connected to matter. It's only by our attachment to it, that is emotional attachment to it, that we have a connection with it. So the Vedas say, asangho khyayam purusha, little living entity, little soul. You don't belong here. In fact, you have nothing to do here, really, that's important. And you have no real connection here. Does that make you feel better or worse? Better because you thought something was askew, and then worse because wasted so much time already. So in any case, the process of chanting is described by one of the great teachers, Kumbh Mela out here. The process of Kumbh Mela is a huge festival in India with about 10 million people who come and hang out. So, Navina, what was I about to say? Yes. Anavriti Shabda. I frequently interrupt myself. So the process of chanting will... Oh, yes. It was Kapiladev. Kapiladev was teaching his mother about the process of bhakti yoga and gave this example, that this chanting process and the other simple processes of bhakti yoga are like the digestion process in our stomach. When you eat food, it gets digested. I dare say we have no idea how it happens, nor do we think about it very much. That's why it's a good example, because he says that by the chanting process, the subtle material body that's contaminated with material desires and connections to the temporary world gets dissolved, just the way food in the stomach gets dissolved automatically by the process of digestion. So bhakti yoga is like that. We don't have to have a PhD in the digestive process or know what's going on. But if you do it, you'll notice for yourself. And another example is given about eating food, which are my favorite kinds of examples. And that is when you're hungry and you eat food, you feel nourished, satisfied, and your hunger goes away. Do you agree with that? Yes. So in a similar way, when you do this chanting, then you'll notice for yourself that you're connecting to the Supreme. And another thing that you'll notice is you're starting to feel less compelled to hold on to bad habits. The things that, have you ever been in a situation, you knew you shouldn't do it, you knew you shouldn't give it, you should give it up, but you just can't? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, be counted. Yeah. So then, by the chanting, he says, you'll find that you'll get a new strength, a superpower, but I don't want it anymore, because you've tasted something better. Or, in parallel with the example, when you're eating food, even if you're very hungry, when you start to get full, then there's a way in which somebody offers you more, even if it's the most delicious, tasty dish ever. And they say, well, you want some more? It's like, no, I don't want any more. I'm fine. This is called virakti. It's a miracle, actually. It doesn't happen in normal circumstances. Not the food part, but being detached from bad habits or being able to just walk away from them. So this is one of the symptoms or one of the benefits that comes from practicing bhakti quite naturally and automatically. You don't have to try for it as much. It just happens naturally. So if one wakes up in the morning, and it's good to get up before the sun, and you have a plan to do some chanting on your own, then you can have a counting device. One of the aesthetically pleasing ways to count your chanting is on a string of beads. You can roll them in your fingers, and you move it along as you're chanting. And let's just say you make a vow to chant 11 mantras every morning. So a strict bhakti yogi then would go to bed at a reasonable hour. Reasonable means, like according to the Ayurveda, you should be fast asleep by 10. I hope that's not a shock to anybody. I think it is. But 10 o'clock is the time you're supposed to be snoring. And then get up before the sun. Because that early time in the morning, if you can start then and do your chanting. And what's recommended in the bhakti yoga practice is write down a number that you won't go below and keep it. Something more than 0 and not less than 1. And once you make that pledge to yourself, that I'll do these many mantras, this many mantras every day, no matter what happens. And you keep it over time, you'll start to notice the effects very profoundly. This is called Sankhya Purvaka, numerical strength. And we get strength from the practice of yoga. And this is the most essential and direct practice of yoga, the chanting. So keep the chanting and try to do it in the morning. You can do it anytime. There's no restriction. I'm just giving an ideal schedule. Try to get up before the sun, clean yourself up a little bit, make your bed, and make sure you're in an orderly place. Don't look at your email. That's a disaster. Even, not even talking about yoga, the Brian Tracy and all the self-help coaches will say, don't look at your email until after 11 a.m. Otherwise, you'll go off in a million different directions and get anxiety. Reserve the time in the morning for your spiritual practice. So if you do that and you count them, and then, okay, I'm done with my minimum. And then you can move on. Or sometimes you'll feel like, I'm going to do more. That's okay too. Just don't do less. And keep that mark. Then when you feel that that's easy, I can do this many mantras every day for sure, then you can move up. So it's like climbing a ladder. You put your foot on the rung, and when it feels steady, and you know you're okay, then you can move to the next rung, and you keep moving up. And as you increase your chanting a little bit over time by increments, then you'll start noticing you're going to get more spiritual strength. And you'll have breakthroughs that will happen while you're chanting. What's a breakthrough? It's a sense that I don't want to stop chanting. That's a good sign. Another good sign is, preliminary good sign, is that I don't know what time it is. In other words, I'm not watching the clock. When's this going to be over? I get absorbed. And then some of the benefits will come after you finish chanting. You'll finish your chanting, you maybe walk out into your garden and you look up and then you go, oh, I feel different. I see the world differently. And I also have some recognition that there's a divine nature to the world that I didn't see before. Before I was just rushing off somewhere. So you get this peacefulness, natural sense of being in the present and a mindfulness that comes from the chanting. And these are preliminary signs that you're touching the web of the divine. This is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita also, other symptoms. So in the Gita, Krishna's teaching about how to come to the spiritual platform. Rise above being identified with matter, because that's always troublesome. And when you come even a little bit, and we gave this example yesterday in our class about you don't have to come a mile above the water to not drown. You only have to be at least an inch. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, once you get an inch above the water, then here's the symptoms that you'll see for yourself directly. So he says that the first symptom is that you'll feel happy for no reason. You didn't win anything. You didn't get any good news or anything. You just naturally feel happy. That's the state of the soul. The joyfulness, natural joyfulness. And then also, you'll have a sense of universality towards other living beings and towards all energies, but especially the living beings in any kind of body. You'll feel a sense of connectedness, brotherhood, if you will, kinship with other living beings. You'll see the sameness of all the spiritual energies. This is kind of a divine vision that starts to awaken. That's why people who are spiritually advanced show respect to all living beings, because they have this sense that we're all connected. They don't see the body and think, hey, you're a Republican, get out of here, Democrat, or whatever it is. All the different dichotomies that are created from having connection with the material energy become harmonized in the spiritual vision. So this is tangible, it's practical, and it's beneficial for one's life, because then as you move about the rest of your day, once you have this experience, then you'll have the wherewithal to have enlightened engagement with the rest of your day. If you go to work and somebody says, where were you? Did anybody ever say that to you? Or like, how come you're late? I'm not grouchy. You don't react, but you react appropriately, because you have this inner strength called yoga balena that you get from your spiritual practice that you're doing for yourself. So this is vital for survival in this world. And then you can make more advancement in the process of chanting. One of the recommended ways to do that is to read the Bhagavad Gita. It's a non-sectarian literature that just talks about, if you will, spiritual technology. What's the difference between the body and the self? How the various modalities of this world work, so you can identify them. You can see how the energies are working, so you can be careful about how you move in the world, whom you associate with, and so forth. And this becomes a well-reasoned kind of faith and experience that one gets from hearing of the Bhagavad Gita and also chanting. It reinforces what you're feeling when you chant by reading the Bhagavad Gita. So these two things together. And one third thing is just adjust your diet a little bit. Because highly processed food that's gone through all kinds of machines, been touched by all kinds of people, looked at by different people, and it wasn't cooked with love. Maybe the ingredients are a little, I don't know, what's a good word? A little toxic, wonky. Huh? Polluted. Yeah, don't eat polluted food, and food can be polluted because of where it came from, the ingredients that are in it, and those who cooked it. This is part of the science of devotional services. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. What you put in your mouth, it has a vibration. So the highest type of vibration is when you get ingredients that are not contaminated. Also, you don't want to be killing any critters, or as few as possible. I mean, even plants have life. But you have to discriminate and take the least violent diet that you possibly can. But then there's a process through which, when you're preparing it, cooking the food, you can offer the mantra and offer the food to Krishna. And then it becomes what's called prasadam. It's spiritual food. So eat spiritual food and then do your chanting and read the Bhagavad Gita, those three things. And that's if you do any one of them, you're going to notice the difference. But if you do all three of those things together, and granted the food part is a little harder, but there are lots of cookbooks and instruction of how you can simply do that. If you make those three adjustments over time, then you'll notice a profound improvement in your consciousness. And you'll realize one by one, or simultaneously, the various benefits that I listed at the beginning of the class. They'll start to manifest in your life. And then you'll feel encouraged, because nothing succeeds like success. So now we have a few extra minutes, and we'll take a few reflections. Anything that you heard so far from the monologue, or whatever you experienced from the chanting, that you'd like to reflect back so we can amplify some of the points. Or if you have a question that you think would expand the conversation in a helpful direction, feel free. And we give $100 for a bad question. Prabhu? Yes, Nivyan and Narada Prabhu, all the way in the back. We have plenty of microphones, enough for everyone. 7 seconds or less, or your money back.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Sometimes I want to improve myself, yet when I hear classes like this, or somebody may give me feedback, I may say I don't want to change, or I may say I want to change, but I can't change. What is it? Is it my obstinacy? Is it my hypocrisy? Or is it just weakness of the heart that holds me back of doing the right thing consecutively? Not just once, not just intellectually, but actually carrying through with it.
Well, it's hard to say, really, because there's so many influences in this world, and all the categories of obstacles you mentioned, weakness of heart, and I forget what else you said. But obstinacy? Yeah, hypocrisy. Those are all, could be under the category of weakness of heart. However, if there's even a tiny glimmer of desire that I would like to improve myself, that can be cultured. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says everybody can rise in due course of time. And there's a person I met in Delhi. I went to his house for dinner. And he was very wealthy. So when he was driving us around Delhi, we got in a conversation about his enterprise and how he got so wealthy. And he told me that he started by collecting old cell phones. People just throw them away because they're pretty useless. And in India, there wasn't a recycling program at the time. I don't know if there is now. But he collected them because he realized there was a tiny speck of gold inside each one of them. It was used there as a conduit. Tiny, tiny speck of gold. And so most people don't bother. But he collected tens of thousands of phones and then hired people. And they sat there manually taking out the speck of gold and putting it into a pile until he had a huge mound of gold. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, even if you start with the tiniest little speck of intention, and you can just fan that a little bit, it'll grow. And one of the points that Krishna makes throughout the Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere is that when you try to express your intention, even if you can't do it, if you don't have the strength to do it, if you keep trying, even if it's at intervals, even if you're terrible at it, then eventually, because you have help from within the heart, Krishna is there within the heart and he sees the intention and he'll make arrangements to help you. Sometimes they're not great arrangements. For instance, Giri Raj Maharaj tells a story about when he lived in Bombay and they were starting the Juhu project. There's a great book about it that he just released last year. And Prabhupada was there and he was translating books. He had a translator, a young man who was translating his books into Marathi. And they were coming to see Prabhupada about the translation. And the young man would bring his father. His father had a habit of smoking. And he was having a hard time giving it up. And he felt a little bit guilty whenever he'd come before Prabhupada. He'd say, I'm still smoking. So once he came in, he said, I need your special mercy to give up the smoking habit. And Prabhupada said, Krishna can give you special mercy. I can give you special mercy. He said, but the way it comes is, he'll make you so miserable that you'll want to give it up and you'll be forced to give it up. So, do you want the special mercy? And he's like, no. The point is, you could do it the easy way or the hard way. If somehow or other you can get the image of, well, what the result's going to be, I'm going to have to suffer one way or the other. Better if I give it up myself. And one way to start is really by praying. Because if we manifest our intention in words, even if we don't believe ourselves yet, that we could even do it, then Krishna helps. And there's a way in which we start getting some impetus to do it. But one way or another, if you start with the smallest little speck of intention, like that little piece of gold, and you keep doing it, then gradually you'll be able to rise in due course of time. And when you do, not you, you're already past everything, but when one does, then you can have a celebration. Hold a big feast and invite everybody to come in. It's like, hey, I just gave up a bad habit, and I know I did, and I'm at a new level. It's a time to celebrate, really. Thanks for the question. It's really a pervasive problem in this world. Oh, we have Bali right next to you. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Welcome back from London.
Thank you.
And just reflecting the same realization in Hong Kong, and the Haribol, actually, I was also traveling from US to India on the way Hong Kong maybe 5-6 years ago. And I think after 15 hours of flight, so when you get down and going for changeover, so on the way, I think I also heard someone chanting, Haribol, Haribol. So I thought my head is reeling or something. because of 15 hours flight, maybe. But by the time you really look back, Brahmachari was there actually. I was just putting my bead bag. I was just in normal cloth, not even devotional cloth, but he was saying that I was holding the bead bag during this time. So he was running around, I found someone. Long time he had a 6 hours flight, so we chatted for some time. So it was a nice Hong Kong story about Haribol. Hari. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the holy name is portable.
There's one on the Zoom.
Oh, yes. Okay. I think you're on mute if you're speaking. Bhaktavatsal?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. And I have a little experience and a reflection to share from chanting. So, when I joined in this movement, I didn't understand the chanting, how it's going to help, but I just kept doing it because I was surrendering to the words of devotees. And eventually it just became a very, I didn't realize, when did it become like an oxygen? And can you hear me, Guru Maharaj? Okay. So,
we're appreciating very much. Everyone's appreciating what you're saying. Please go ahead.
Okay. So, and then in between, sometimes I used to get off tune and I wasn't chanting either attentively, or I wasn't chanting the number of rounds that I took vow for. But then I went back to do it, and I experienced some stuff that I can only that only I know, maybe you would know. And then there are a few very beautiful things that used to happen. Like early morning when I would wake up and I would chant, there would be 2 birds in my backyard who would always come, always. And listening to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada when he's chanting. So those birds would stay, and when I'm done with chanting, they would go. So those birds became my motivation in my initial chanting days when I had a hard time waking up in the morning and chanting. So yeah, and then when I developed this habit of waking up early, they left. After that didn't come. So yeah, and I sincerely surrendered this request to Krishna in the temple that I want to wake up early, but I cannot wake up early. Help me. And he did something. He made arrangements.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. When living in Vrindavan, it's a small village in India, a spiritual village. I was at my friend's house. He has a little rural situation, a goshala. He keeps cows and he's got agriculture. And there are a lot of dogs that live in the wild there. Well, they're not really, they're kind of wild. They don't have a household they're connected with. They all congregate together, fight it out on corners and stuff. But one dog would come every day to get a chapati. A chapati is like a flat wheat bread. And my friend would feed him every day at 2 o'clock. And it was a long pathway coming right down to his house. And so every day, at around 1:59, the dog would come running down the pathway and be there by 2 o'clock. We were checking him to see if he had a wristwatch or something. But we notice that animals also appreciate the transcendental vibration. Every living being, doesn't matter if you're a human or an animal or plant or a bug, gets benefit from hearing the transcendental vibration. There was one more. If not, we get to do a little more kirtan because we have 6 more minutes. May we have one more kirtan?
Yes.
You had a point, Sukeshwari. But while you're saying it, somebody can hand me the drum.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was just thinking about, sometimes it looks like...
Other way. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking that sometimes you feel that you've given up something, but then after years together, then you realize, no, it's just gone nowhere. It's still there. And then you'll think like, I don't know, Krishna, when will I really give it up?
Well, it's not necessarily nowhere. When you have a spiritual experience, you also get an impression. These are, as I mentioned before, they're impressions we get from contact with the material world. These are called hladini samskars. We try to get some happiness by connection with the senses and their objects. And actually, after that happens, then that remains in the mind. Some intense experiences we might have of sensual pleasure, then they're there within the mind. We try to enjoy them again and again. Only problem is that you can't enjoy it like the first time. And then you have to, like with drugs, you have to take more and more and more and more, and you just don't get the experience. Then after a while, there's nothing at all, and you're still doing it, but you can't stop. And so just as there's a detrimental effect to try to enjoy the lower energies, there's a permanent kind of effect one gets when one takes the initiative to catch those spiritual impressions and samskars. They stay there. And so if you've had that experience and then somehow you wander off, then Krishna says, come back. The samskar, the impression that you got, is permanent. And it takes some time, of course, in any discipline that's worth anything, it takes a long time to become a master at it and actually say, like, okay, I've gone over to a certain point. But all the great masters in bhakti yoga also say, never think like that I'm beyond everything. Because the material world is we're in such a tenuous situation here, and it's so easy to get affected by the environment that we have to always be careful, because it's possible to step into the material nature again, because I'm so used to it and I'm surrounded by it. That's why we do our practice every day, not every other day. And if you can do it more and get more momentum, that's better. But that's why people who are cultivating spiritual discipline congregate together, because they want to be around people that have higher vibration and habits. Because if you stray out and you go here, there, and everywhere, you're going to be affected. So that's just the way the material world is. But you never lose the advancement that you make in the process of devotional service, as per the Bhagavad Gita. We'll chant one more mantra, very short one, but I think that you'll like it a lot. Let's do the one from Jai Radha Madhava, the first one. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama Hare Hare. Now we're going to clear the dance floor. So that means we'll stand up, we'll with group effort move all these asanas to the back. They stack up back there. We'll roll up this rug, and beneath us is a dance floor. So now you can chant the Hare Krishna mantra and dance. Fun for the whole family. Thank you very much. We'll see you back on the dance floor.
Something important regarding affirming.
Our permit?
Regarding affirming. Can I speak to you for a while?
Regarding affirming?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sure.
Hare.
Quick question for you.
What?
This Tuesday is a Giving Tuesday.
Yeah.
So the corporate can give. Is it okay to announce that?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is legal.
Yeah, it is.
Anything legal can be announced.
Should we go upon doing the announcements? No, he asked me, but I think I'm going to have morning. So we'll announce Nisha's.
Shraddha wanted to give an announcement, right?
She's not here.
She was here.
She was here. We are
Call-
looking for her.
Oh, maybe call her up and ask
And
what
ask her to probably do it over the phone even.
Yeah, she can do that or tell us what to say. Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Pashtat Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shiva Kari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. No terminale. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jayom Vishnuvad Paramahamsa Privajakacarya Stotarasta Shishniman Abhay Charanara Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnuvad Paramahamsa Privajakacarya Stotarasta Shishniman Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavi Ki Jai. Namachkari Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prams Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gokopina Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Samveda Bhaktan Ki Jai. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Go pray. Hari Hari Go.
Hare Krishna. We'd like to dedicate the Nrsimha prayers to Lokini Mataji's nephew, Achut, who recently passed away. And we request all of the devotees to keep him in their prayers and pray for his protection and safe departure. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Namaste Narasingaya. Namaste Narasingaya.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the Sunday Feast program at ISKCON of Silicon Valley. Every week at ISV, we have programs on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, which are filled with Kirtan, interactive lectures, arati, and scrumptious prasadam. We'd like to thank everyone who joined us in person today and those who also joined us online. Thank you for coming. Today, we'd like to thank His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu for leading us through the lecture and the artik. And thank you to Avantika for leading the Nrsimha prayers. We'd also like to give a huge welcome back to His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu and Nirakala Mataji for returning from their UK trip. And and also to Hansapriya Mataji and Radhavala Prabhu, who also brought us special prasadam from Vrindavan, Jagannath, Puriti, Tirupati, and Govardhan, which you can receive in the prasadam line as well. Now, we honor and welcome all of the newcomers here at ISV. We're grateful to have you amongst us, and we want to do whatever we can to make you feel comfortable. So please reach out to Hansapriya Mataji, Sri Gopal Prabhu, or Sachinder Prabhu if you have any questions or if you need anything. We also have two main announcements today. Our dear Nisha has passed her exams, and now she's a certified physician. We'd like to give her a huge round of applause for all of her hard work. She's right over there. And we all wish you the very best for your career and in your future services here. We also have an announcement for Shraddha Mataji, if she's here.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Hare Krishna, a question for you here. Raise your hands. How many of you want ISKCON of Silicon Valley to be on the tops on book distribution this year in USA? Hari bol. So here is a huge chance for you to contribute to that. We have good news. Like every year, this year also, Facebook is going to give away $8 million as matching for those who are brave enough to get up early in the morning on Tuesday, November 30th, which is the Tuesday Giving Day. And they will match. There's a high chance that your donation could qualify for a match, 100% match, or worst case, a 10% match. But like we say, and as Prabhupada said, and he was practicing that also, that every cent counts, right? So it doesn't matter, whether it's 100% or 10%, give it your best, right? So we have got 2 fundraisers, one for ISKCON of Silicon Valley Books, and that is on Fan the Spark. And the other one is for Pacific Learning Alliance, which is on the Radha Kripa Prabhu has created that fundraiser. And we have posted the email with all the details for that. And all that you have to do is get up in the morning on Tuesday and open your hearts and give as much as you can. Thank you so much for 5 a.m. in the morning. The highest chances are there for 5 a.m. in the morning, but if you miss it, doesn't matter. Still give, because there's nothing to lose, right? So Facebook, if it doesn't match, your contributions still come to ISV. And in some of the cases, your employer could still match it. So if you have been matching your contributions through your employers, this is another chance, another conduit through which you contribute. And if you have any more questions, feel free to contact me or contact Bal Mukund Prabhu, and we'll be happy to answer your questions there. If you want alarm service for the morning on Tuesday, we are there to help you as well. We'll give you a call there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shraddha Mataji. And after a really long time, we have Mangala Arati sweets that are available, which you can get over there, and you can get it with a small donation of your choice. Here at ISV, feasts are only possible because of our sponsors, so we'd like to thank Divya Kumari Mataji and Achyuta Kumar Prabhu, who have sponsored today's feast because of their 17th anniversary. And now we'll hear about the cooks.
Hare Krishna. Today's prasadam was cooked by Siddha Katha Prabhu, Savarna Gopika Mataji, Sindhu Kanya Mataji, Shankar Prabhu, Hema Mataji, Vinay Prabhu, and Vijay Damodar Prabhu. And today's cleaners were Niharika, Adin Prabhu, Advait, Aprame, Shastra Saraprad, and Srinivas Prabhu.
We encourage the entire community to participate in our cleaning efforts so that we can keep our facility clean and that we can serve you better. With that, we'll have prasadam prayers. Yes.
Hare. It's a beautiful poem written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which says that those who are trying to elevate themselves in life must control the senses. And he states what all the other bhakti literatures say, and that is the tongue is the most difficult to control. And he goes on to say that Krishna is very kind and he's given us spiritual food called prasadam, the taking of which tames the tongue. So we don't just eat and we don't just call it food, but we call it Krishna prasadam, or Krishna's mercy. And when we take it, we say we're honoring prasadam. It's a spiritual activity. So this prayer brings to light these beautiful truths about the practice of bhakti yoga and the honoring of prasadam. And it goes like this. Sharira Vijajao Jyotindriya Kahita Jive Pele Vishaya Sabhare Dharma Kiti Bharati Logo Hui Supurnati Take Jeta Kakita Samsara Krishna Bora Goyamo Tori Bhare Jivara Shaksa Anadiloka Shayanam Vitapao Radha Krishna Bhumagao Vedako Chaitanya Vita Vedako Shri Chaitanya Vita Makshare Govinde Namakani Vaisesika Sampapanya Vatanaja Krishna Sunatake Sare Sarva Utmana Mahirasyo Pajayate Sanache Tasoyasyo Buddhivaya Patishta Tvayopa Bhutta Suganda Vasubandha Charchita Utishta Bodhino Dasa Davamayam Jayemahi Bhagavat Shri Mahaprasada Ki Gaur Premanande Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Please come take prasadam. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to ISKCON Silicon Valley. We'll be serving just outside in the picnic area, and feel free to make yourselves at home right here in the temple room. Correct? Thank you. Vaisesika Kripa Sindhudeva Patitanam Pavanam Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.